Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Tata Elxsi Q2 FY22 earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Lokesh Parekh from Christensen Advisory. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, Stanford. Good afternoon to all the participants on this call. Before we proceed to the call, let me remind you that the discussion may contain forward-looking statements that may involve known or unknown risks, uncertainties, and other factors. It must be viewed in conjunction with our business risks that could cause further result performance and achievements to differ significantly from what is expressed or implied by such forward-looking statements. To take us through the results and answer your questions today, we have the senior management of Tata Elxsi, represented by Mr. Manoj Raghavan, MD and CEO, Mr. Nitin Pai, Chief Marketing and Chief Strategy Officer, Mr. Gaurav Bajaj, Chief Financial Officer, and Mr. G. Vaidyanathan, Chief Investor Relations Officer. We will start the call with a brief overview of the past quarter by Mr. Raghavan, followed by a Q&A session. We would appreciate your cooperation in restricting yourself to 2 questions to allow other participants an opportunity to interact too. If you do have further questions, do join the queue and we would be happy to respond to them if time permits. I now hand over the call to Mr. Manoj Raghavan. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Lokesh. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today and hope you and your families are safe. I'm happy to report that we have delivered another quarter of steady growth across industry verticals, and we continue to execute strongly on both top line and bottom line. Our revenues from operations for the quarter gone by was rupees 595.3 crores, registering a growth of 6.6% quarter-on-quarter and 38.4% year-on-year. The growth was entirely volume-led, reflecting in a constant currency revenue growth of 7.4% quarter-on-quarter and 37.2% year-on-year. We had forex losses to the extent of 4.7 crores, while we had an almost equivalent gain in the last quarter. We will continue to monitor our hedging policy and tweak as required, but the real focus is on driving operational performance while managing downsides from currency. Our profit before tax grew 11.1% quarter-on-quarter and 55.5% year-on-year to 171 crores. Net profit for the quarter stood at 125.3 crores, reporting a growth of 10.5% quarter-on-quarter and 58.9% year-on-year. The company's growth was powered by the Embedded Product Design, EPD, our largest division, at 10.6% quarter-on-quarter and 34.4% year-on-year in constant currency terms. Within EPD, the growth was broad-based across verticals. The transportation vertical business posted a smart double-digit quarter-on-quarter growth of 12.9% and 29% year-on-year. Media and communication and healthcare verticals delivered another steady quarter. Media and communications grew by 7.8% quarter-on-quarter and 32.9% year-on-year growth, and healthcare grew by 6.6% quarter-on-quarter and 72.3% year-on-year. We are seeing significant growth in automotive market with large and strategic deals with both OEMs and suppliers in the EV and autonomous technologies, underscoring our technology and engineering leadership. Tata Elxsi won a multi-million US$ electric vehicle software development program for a new age EV OEM in the APAC geography. We also won a software platform development deal for level 3 autonomy and beyond from a North American system supplier. Rest of the world, which is really Japan, Korea and China for us, has been muted for some quarters, especially because it is automotive heavy, and travel restrictions also damped the start of new projects in these regions. We are seeing some revival here. We also won an EV system software development deal from a leading Japanese tier 1 supplier, which will ramp up from this quarter. Our media and communication business continues to grow steadily, led by organic growth and deeper mining in our top customers and platform-led deals, which are enabling entry into operators and broadcasters that were otherwise not accessible. We were selected as a platform provider and system integrator for a multi-region Android TV launch for a leading America-based operator, and this will be a multi-year engagement. Our award-winning ICX platform for customer experience was chosen by a leading global telecom operator to be adopted and deployed across multiple countries. We will see new countries signing on over the next few quarters. Our industrial design business declined 14.2% quarter-on-quarter basis. The sequential decline was due to a shift in program timelines for a large ongoing design-led innovation project with a US customer who also featured in our top 5 customer list. We have finished one phase of this large project, but subsequent phases are deferred, and we expect this to resume in the next 1 to 2 quarters, but the values would be spread over a few quarters. In the meanwhile, IDV is creating traction through design-led deals, which have a multiplier effect for the 3 verticals, and has won significant projects for itself. One example is a deal we announced this quarter where we are selected as a strategic design agency to redesign an entire portfolio of appliances for a leading Asian appliance company. IDV grew smartly at 64.5% on a year-on-year basis and continued to baseline at a much higher numbers than the same quarter in the previous year. This is a better sign of long-term trend of sustained revenues, while some work is still project-based and therefore subject to volatility quarter-on-quarter until new projects kick in fully. Overall, we are also focused on deeper mining of our customer beyond the top 10. We believe there are great logos in our customer base that can deliver growth. We are also carefully adding customers in each vertical that can drive future growth for us. We added over 700 new employees to the Alexion family in the quarter. While attrition increased to 13.9% for the quarter, we are still lower than industry averages and continue to actively work on retention, especially for key employees, while continue to plan and add new employees to drive future growth. In summary, it has been a very satisfying quarter with superior top line and bottom line performance that are supported by industry-leading operational excellence and talent retention. And we are entering the third quarter with a strong order book and a healthy deal pipeline across key markets and industries. With that, I hand it over to the Q&A session. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may please press star, then 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star, then 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Anyone who wishes to ask questions, please press star, then 1. The first question is from the line of Vimal Gohil from Union Asset Management. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, sir. Congratulations on a good quarter. So my first question is if you could just quantify. So last quarter you had a one-time large bonus payout, and this time around, I guess there would be salary hikes that would have got executed. So if you could just highlight what was the impact of the salary hikes on margins in this particular quarter. And my second question was related to transportation vertical. We've seen a very, very good sequential uptick in transportation. If you could just take us through, what is the outlook there in one of your largest clients over there, which is JLR. How is it doing? Would you say that it is at its probably at its close to its all-time highs as well, along with other clients? And we expect medical devices also. We were expecting to take it to 20%. So are we on track for that? Those are my 3 questions. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So there are multiple questions there. Yes, we've had a full salary hike in this quarter, starting from July. The salary hikes were of the range of about 14 to 15 crores, right? So that's the sort of salary budgets, hike budgets that were incurred in the quarter. You talked about automotive business. Yes, automotive business has been subdued for many quarters, and the last quarter and in this quarter we have shown some decent growth. This quarter definitely a double-digit growth. So a lot of good traction in the marketplace from both OEMs and Tier 1s. Our JLR business definitely has also grown, so which is very satisfying. But again, we are nowhere close to the peak we were, and I think the peak we were was sometime in 2017-18 time frame. So we are much below that peak, so there is a long way to go. And we strongly believe that as JLR pivots into full EV sort of OEM and manufacturer, there are a lot of opportunities that will open up for us, and hopefully pretty soon we should be able to cross the peaks that we achieved in 2017-18 time frame. The medical business continue to grow, and as you've seen from a year-on-year basis, we have grown significantly, and we continue to focus our investments and focus our sales efforts on that business, and we hopefully will grow that business quarter on quarter as well as year-on-year basis.
What we've seen is the engineering budgets for OEMs don't really get impacted because of any temporary slowdown in their volumes. But does that really does that hold true? Are the engineering budgets, or let's say engineering outsourcing budgets, typically for OEMs and other large auto ancillaries, they have sort of decoupled from their volume growth, and this trend has been sort of accentuated in recent times. Would that be a fair assumption to make?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, the industry is struggling with the semiconductor shortage and so on, right? But that's more a temporary, this quarter, next quarter sort of a situation. But long-term outsourcing, long-term projects and so on, we don't see any effect of the temporary situation on any of that, and we're pretty confident that unless this continues for the next 6 to 8 quarters, and industry is in a real serious difficulty, we don't see effect of this on our business.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bharat Sheth from Quest Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Raghavan and Nitin, and congratulations on good set of number. Hello.
Yes, please.
Raghavan, just I'm trying to get some sense from medium-term perspective. See, if we really look at, till Q3 of FY21, say and full FY20, we hired almost, say, in these 7 quarters, 756 employee, whereas in last 3 quarters we have added almost 1800, which is almost more than doubled. So how do we really seeing this medium term? And second thing on this attrition. So attrition, have we seen on medium and higher end or at lower end? So in this lower, the net addition, whatever we have done, so how do we see the overall employee cost as a sales?
Yeah, if you look at it, overall employee cost, I think we have been able to manage pretty well. If you look at it, 55-56% of our revenues is the employee cost, right? So we have been able to manage it pretty well. Yes, you're right. We have seen accelerated hiring in the last few quarters, and that will continue in the subsequent quarters also, because our utilization has gone up significantly. In the earlier quarters, the growth came. We had resources and we were planning for it, but the rate at which we have been growing, we definitely need to add more resources, both laterals as well as freshers. So whatever you have seen the last couple of quarters that we have been adding, I think this quarter we've added over 1,200 engineers, and last quarter also we've added about 1,000 engineers gross. So and we hope to continue this in the next 2 quarters as well. So what we are doing is we are planning for this growth that we're seeing right now, right? And for us, if you look at it, I would say there is a huge demand in the marketplace, and we are gearing ourselves, we are getting ready to meet the demand, and that is why you see those accelerated pace of hiring.
So in last year, despite, I mean, we grew 13%, but since the change in onshore offshore mix, we grew more than 40% if we're really like to like basis, and even offshoring is increasing. So how do we see the margin trending from here onward?
I think you look at it from a H1 perspective. We are about 27.5, 27.7% from a H1 perspective. I think that's a good sort of margin. It gives us cushion. It gives us cushion even if we need to go out and hire experienced people and so on. It gives us a good cushion to be able to manage it without really bringing down your margin significantly. And the fact that we have been able to move more work offshore also gives us that cushion. So yes, we are sitting on a good cushion as far as margin perspective is concerned. So that gives us a good confidence that if whatever investments are needed to grow business, we can confidently go ahead and do that without really affecting the margin, overall performance for the year.
So this kind of growth, I mean, and with the addition of the employee that we have grown almost 40%. So this kind of a growth, do you think is sustainable for at least a few years? The kind of a pipeline. And second thing is on that, in our commentary, you are saying that we have won a very good business on a product and platform basis, digital platform. So how we are seeing this platform traction increasing?
Yeah. So yes, we need to add our headcount, just keeping in mind the sort of demand that we're seeing in the market, right? As far as the platform is concerned, yes, we have been building a number of platforms, including FalconEye, ICX, Quotient. There are a number of things that we're building, especially in the media and communication vertical, and that has really helped us to win customers, and operators that are otherwise difficult to really. You need to bring something of value to them that they will engage with you. And so our strategy of building these platforms has been pretty useful, and we have shown some good customer wins, including this quarter, where we have really licensed our platform and built solutions around it to win, broadcast communication, customers who otherwise, would be very difficult to engage. So we definitely would continue building these platforms, building these intellectual properties that, and per se, the licensing revenue from those may not be very significant, but what it really helps us is it helps us to get engaged and then build our services revenue around those platforms, and it builds a very strong value proposition to differentiate ourselves from competition, and also build in a lock-in with the customer, right? So there are many reasons why we would continue to invest on these platforms.
Thank you, and all the best. I have more questions. I'll rejoin the queue.
Sure.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Naveen Bothra, an investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Congratulations, sir, for continued operating excellence with industry-leading EBITDA margins and highest ever quarterly profit, sir. And wishing all the very best, sir. Mr. Bharat has already asked about my best question of employees and platform-led deals. So I would like to repeat that one. If you can throw more light on our inorganic acquisition and further capital allocation towards the organic R&D and innovation-led investments or inorganic acquisitions, if you can throw some more light on that. And relating to that, if you can provide us the data whether our IPR-led revenues are even now below 5%, or if you can track plus more than 5%.
Yeah, no, the IPR, I'll answer the second question. The IPR is definitely, below 5% from a standalone basis, right? But as I said, what is really good for us is IPR-led revenues, which are services around the IPRs that we have. That is showing a good traction, and that is depending on. From a inorganic strategy, I've always repeated that we're not shying away from an inorganic activity, and the situation is the same. There is nothing to report as of now. As and when there is something for the investors, we will let you know.
Okay. And second question is regarding the introduction of new verticals in the edutech and all the training and all that, because in the social media we are seeing some posts and all these things about the training and all these things. If you can say that just like healthcare, in the going forward, we will be introducing new verticals, standalone verticals to give more focus, like edutech and all this.
Yeah, we are continuing to invest in our edutech business. So it is still a very, very, very small business, but there is a definite focus. Similarly, on industrial 4.0 and manufacturing, we are continuing to invest. So these are two new areas that we're not calling it out as separate, industry verticals and so on, but we continue to invest in that, and we have early customers in both those cases. However, at an appropriate time, we will lay it out to the investors. It is still at an incubation stage right now.
Okay. And just a small question regarding the hiring target for the next 2 quarters, if we will be touching the 5-figure employee 10,000 or just like that?
Yeah, so I guess we should be able to. Our hiring would be in the range of, again, similar 1,200 to 1,500 a quarter for the next 2 quarters.
Okay. So by end of the year, we will be around 10,000 net additions.
Yeah, looking at the way we continue to hire, yeah, that is the figure that we are looking at.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. All the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Saravanan Balakrishnan, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I just have a couple of questions. So first question is primarily on the client concentration risk, right? So earlier, top 5 clients used to contribute somewhere around 35 to 40%. So how that is changing? And second question is primarily on the ER&D space, like where now since the global OEM spend has increased. So what's the trend looking like? So what I see is so across all ER&D companies, so they show similar growth rates where the industry itself is growing higher, where Tata Elxsi is primarily on the lead. So just want to get a sense of like what's driving this trend. Will this trend continue for 3-5 years? And if for any reason if the trend reverses, like how are we capped at? Like since we are adding 1,500 employees every quarter, so how is that project portfolio mix getting balanced in terms of any macro impact?
Yeah, so our top 5 customer concentration is 36.6, almost 37%. What we have been definitely looking at is to definitely mine the top 10 accounts, as well as get beyond the top 10 customers and also aggressively grow the top 10 to 20 customer base also, right? So there is an active effort going to really look at the top 20 bucket and see how we can grow that particular customer base. Regarding the ER&D question, I mean, it's well known that there is going to be a boom in the ER&D, outsourcing. All data and trends indicate the same. This entire, the digital, what is happening in the digital space, especially in the ER&D space, including AI, big data, digital twins, this trend towards, digital manufacturing. All of that would definitely mean a lot more growth for companies like us. We are seeing we are seeing traction. If you look at the industry or industry segments that we are in, automotive, because of EV and the car industry going digital in a way, right? So that is a positive trend for us, and we continue to leverage and benefit from that trend. Of course, the media and communication with OTT, with digitization, with digital labs, all of that coming in. So the opportunity in front of us is pretty big. I would say the same for medical devices and healthcare space also. So all the three industry verticals that we are in are showing growth, and the investments that we are doing right now in headcount and so on is to really cater to this growth. I do not foresee a slump in any of these industry segments in the next 2 to 3 years at least. So as and when, if at all there is something happening, I'm sure we will be able to see it much before a lot of others, and we will take corrective actions, and we will take and that is why we've also built in adjacencies for us, right? So we have, I would say, we are pretty much covered from an industry risk perspective. Unless something drastic happens in the world, I think the next 2 to 3 years we don't see suddenly our pie of the overall industry segment slowing down and decreasing and so on.
Got it. And one last question I have is regarding the M&A part. Since almost all the ER&D companies are also trading at historically high valuations, right? Especially from price to sales. Like, are we facing any challenges in getting good acquisition targets, primarily from an inorganic standpoint?
Yeah, so we are not looking to acquire any any company which fits the bill, right? What we are looking at is we are really focused on adjacencies that we are in, and we are trying to identify companies that can come at a reasonable margin, right? So yes, as you rightly pointed out, the market is pretty hot, and companies are overvalued at this point in time. So unless something comes up that really meets the criteria, we will not rush in and buy a company just for the sake of buying.
Got it. I think that sounds good. I think wish you all the best. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, to ask a question, please press star, then 1. The next question is from the line of Amit Savani, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Manoj sir. Thank you for taking my call. I just want to confirm that is JLR our largest client this quarter?
No, JLR is not the largest client for us this quarter.
Okay. And the other point is that, so you mentioned that the employee cost went up by 14 crores because of the increment, but the QOQ increase in the employee cost is 8 crores. So, yeah. And our number of employees have also gone up. So I was just, it was just not adding up.
No, there are a number of,
Yeah, so I think just one clarification here. You have to remember that we did have a one-time bonus last quarter, right? So that came in last quarter, but does not have much of an effect in the quarter that's just gone by. I'm talking of Q1 versus Q2. Q2 really sees two big ticket items. One is salary hikes that are deployed with existing employees, and all the additions that we did of new employees.
Understood. Thank you for reply. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kshitij Saraf from Tusk Investments. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thank you for taking my question. It's on the M&A bit, right? So Mr. Raghavan mentioned on the geography as well as the capability front, right? In terms of the M&A, what are the adjacencies that Tata Elxsi is looking to get into? That's one question, and related to that is if, given the market scenario at present, are there any plans to build certain of these capabilities in-house in the event that a good deal doesn't go through?
So, thanks, Kshitij. This is Nitin here, and maybe I'll take that question. I think the natural path and the preferred route for us for entering new areas, building capacity as well as capability is organic. So to that extent, we are very clear. Anything that can be done by us and can be done in a given time period with a reasonable chance of success and customer acquisition is preferred, right? And if you look at M&A, it is really when we believe that when we do our NPV calculations, that the path of organic is not as efficient as M&A, right? And therefore, the value that you're acquiring at, the risks of integration, then balanced out against what it will take us to do it ourselves, is really what creates the case. So to that extent, we are not waiting for M&A to deliver for us, right? So I think Manoj did refer to certain incubations of certain new practices, some new technology capabilities, as well as some new verticals. All of these are being done organically, but what we are doing is examining inorganic options to accelerate that journey, right? And this is true for adjacencies too. So when we talk of adjacencies, I mean, we have called out rail and off-highway vehicles. We have called out OTT and new media in the context of media and communications. We have called out pharma and digital health. So all these are declared adjacencies, and these are some things that we are working already organically on. And we are building and accelerating our revenues there, right? So when M&A comes in, it's only to create a shortcut or a shorter path to scale, only if it makes sense for itself.
Got it. Thank you so much, Nitin.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Manish Malkani, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon. There have always been rumors of Tata Elxsi merging with TCS. So every now and then this news keeps coming in. So what are the possibilities of that happening in the near future if there is? And considering for the investors, the prices right now are skyrocketing for the investor. So any chances of a stock split or bonus in the near future?
Yeah, so this question keeps getting asked every now and then, right? And this is not only now, right? 25 years ago when I joined the company, it started. So it's still continuing. It's amusing to say that it is still continuing, right? So yeah, if it happens, it will happen. But right now, I don't think there is any indication whatsoever, right, on this topic. Bonus stock split, yes, I think usually these are decided in our Q4 board meeting, so would request you to wait till then.
Mr. Malkani, do you have any further questions?
Thank you so much. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Hiren Varg from Alchemy Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Raghavan and Nitin. I have no questions actually. I just came on the call to congratulate the two of you on a very strong set of numbers and fantastic execution. Keep the good work going.
Thank you, Hiren.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Apurva Prasad from Elara Capital. Please go ahead.
Thanks for taking my question. Manoj, I had a question on the client bucket. So it just seems like top 2 to 5 had a close to double-digit sequential decline. So is that comparable to the previous quarter, the top 5, or is that changed? Because it looks like a double-digit Q1Q decline. So that is one question. The other is if I can get the utilization number for the quarter. And finally, on the impact, is there going to be another one-time follow-on impact in the third quarter?
Sure. So the top 5, there is no change. It is just that in the what do you say, order of sequence, there is a change, but otherwise the top 5 is the same. There is no change, right? And again, we've already called it out. It is a specific customer in our industrial design business that we were executing a large project, a design-led project, which concluded, and the follow-on projects, which were supposed to happen immediately, got delayed. So that's That's the only reason. So we don't see any impact of it moving forward also. Of course, we will, this particular client engagement continues, but the ramp-ups will happen now over a few quarters. So to that extent, there will be some muted growth there. But however, it will not impact our overall top 5 customers and so on. Utilization, has touched 80%. So that's the figure. So any other question?
Yeah, no, I think that was it. Just a note there, Apurva, that excludes fresh campus hires. So if you include campus hires, that's about 75%. But when you consider only laterals and experienced resources, it's about 80%.
Got it. And is there a follow-on impact of the wage bonus that comes in Q3, or is that all done in the first quarter?
It's all done in this quarter, Q1 and Q2 put together. It's all done.
No, so I mean the one time which happened in the first quarter, does that also spill over to Q3, or was that also part of the Q2?
No, it is also
done. It doesn't move on to Q3.
Yeah, it was primarily Q1 with a little bit spread to Q2, and that's it. That's the end of it.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dhruv Shah from Ambika Fincap. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the opportunity and congratulations on a really good set of numbers. So I really want to know what's the outlook on our on-site and offshore mix, because every quarter you surprise us positively with the mix. But do you see it going above this, or with work from home closely ending, we should go back to 65 to 70% range?
Yeah, so we are at 75-25 right now, right? So on-site, literally speaking, is lesser effort, right? For the same hard work you put in, I can get double the revenue. You should sort of imagine this growth. We are primarily pushing this growth through offshore revenues, and which means we have to work doubly hard to get this revenue growth. So unlike other companies and so on, this growth comes from purely project-led offshore engagements. And if you look at from a headcount perspective, so that's also another reason why we are aggressively adding headcount, right? Because we are growing offshore project execution and offshore revenues. Having said that, Q3, some economies are slowly starting to open up, so we could see a little bit of on-site opportunities, trickling back, but I don't see too much of an effect of that in Q3. But we would closely watch Q4 and the next Q1 to see how the situation changes, right? But at this point of time, I think we would be trending between 75, 76, 77% offshore. That's the visibility that we have.
Excuse me, this is the operator. I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. We can't hear you that well. Maybe
can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I wanted to pick your head on one point you made, that Japan, Korea and China are coming back. So maybe 3-4 years, what would be it as a percentage of transportation, these 3 countries put together?
3-4 years down the line.
No, before, like 3 to 4 years back, what would be their share of the transportation vertical?
Maybe I can take that. This is Nitin here. That would have been about 20% or so. But you have to remember something, that at that time it was primarily Japan only, while China and Korea were just starting to build up as geographies, right? And over a period of time, we have added China and Korea. We have had a lot more customer wins and addition of customers in these 2 regions. But on the other hand, Japan has always been muted for some years now.
Yeah.
Okay, understood. Thank you and all the best, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ravi Naredi from Naredi Investments. Please go ahead.
Congratulations to Mr. Manoj Raghavan and all his team. When everyone is facing attrition, but you have done wonderful job. Sir, some investor has asked to split the share and bonus. Please never do that for investor benefit, because due to this, so many stocks are in the company, and whenever the market goes down, they exit, and that share price impacted for the company. So our request is that no bonus, no split, please. Thank you.
Okay, your point is noted.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rishabh Surana from Niyam. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. First of all, congratulations on the really good set of numbers. And my question is like basically on the work from home culture. So are we seeing the structural shift in working, like for our employees working from home, or are we planning to bring them on board or like working from offices on a face-to-face manner? So this is my only question.
Yes, right now still, maybe 6-7% of the employees work from office, but majority of our employees are working from home. However, over the next period of next few months, we are gradually bringing back all the senior people, the leadership teams and so on back to office. And of course, certain customer engagements that, is more efficient if they all work together because of lab facilities and so on. So some of those we will bring, people back to office. But in general, from January onwards, we see a move towards this hybrid, working culture, wherein a few days in a week, on rotation basis, people will come to office, and otherwise they'll work from home. So I think the way forward is clearly a hybrid sort of an option, and we are exploring, various ways of making this more effective, as we speak.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Tushar Bora from MK Ventures. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, and congratulations to the management for an excellent set of numbers. Apologies for the voice, I have a bad throat. Sir, you had few quarters back, mentioned in one of the calls to a question of mine that you have a stated intention of, say, 10% quarter growth run rate, 10% revenue from IP, and also looking at shifting more projects, to a sort of long-term engagement mode. If I could just understand where we are in that journey today, and qualitatively how things can shape up, say, over the next few quarters.
Yeah. So very clearly on a long-term, projects and engagements, that is a work in progress, and the sort of, growth that we have seen over the last 8 quarters is a primary indication of the sort of, client mining that is happening, and the sort of, long-term deals that we are winning, right? So, all the, policies within the organization, from an incentive policy, sales force, incentive policy, etc., is really focused on rewarding, long-term, deals and so on. So I think we are progressing pretty well from a long, perspective. From an IP perspective, I think we are still below 5%. But what point to note for you is that we are pretty okay with that, because what we see instead of a standalone IP and revenues attached that alone, the sort of add-on revenues that we get by licensing our IP and building the services around those IPs, that is what we are leveraging, and that is what we are, that is what is helping the company grow. So I would say that is okay.
10% quarter.
What was that question? 10% quarter on quarter? I didn't get it.
So sir, you had in one of the earlier calls sort of hinted, the management intention to, see a double-digit quarter-on-quarter kind of a growth run rate. That was the stated intention, which we are, sort of, this quarter we are there in revenue terms.
I'm not sure if I've intended any double-digit quarter-on-quarter growth. Yes, double-digit year-on-year is what I've talked about. I'm not sure of whether I've said anything quarter-on-quarter.
No, I think you specifically mentioned quarter-on-quarter. No, I think the bigger point is that the kind of growth we are seeing right now is this something you think that can be sustained for a few quarters? Do you think that this is a more strategic shift in terms of your own business trajectory?
Yeah, so we have grown this, if you look at the 8-quarter performance, you do a CAGR, you'll see that we are around that 8% sort of a mark, right? So we have been consistently growing at, between, I would say, 6.5 to 8%, over the last 8 quarters. Yes, 1 or 2 quarters, 1 quarter maybe, we've had a little bit of a dip here and there, but by and large, CAGR perspective, we would have grown in this range. So that's the sort of, focus that we have as a management team and as an organization, and we are putting in, everything, right, including investments, hiring, focus on customers, deeper mining, top 10, top 20 accounts. All of that focus has been to really continue to grow at this rate, right? So that's what we intend to, and that's the focus. But we really don't know what the future looks like and what challenges we'll face. But whatever whatever challenges, I'm sure that we will be able to, get over that and, continue our growth momentum.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bharat Sheth from Quest Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the again opportunity. On this designing-led growth, which we were harping a big, of course, it's an initial stage. So when do we really think that this designing business will give us a sustainable growth every quarter on quarter, and how we are deepening our relation with the client and winning the business on that, like what we are doing on the IP side?
Absolutely. So industrial design is critical because it's a entry strategy for us to be able to mine, able to get into and mine customers, and also maintain our margins due to the sort of design-led innovations that we bring in, right? So if you notice it, Mr. Bharat Sheth, as compared to last year, the industrial design business is almost sort of at 70-80% higher than the last year's run rate.
Okay.
That itself should give you a good indication of the sort of changes that we have made to enable this sort of a growth.
Okay.
Yes, design-led deals and industrial design customers, not always do we have multi-year deals, and that is still a work in progress, I would say. But we have a great team, a great potential. It is just that we need to be a lot more consistent, and I would say it will take another 3 to 4 quarters to get there. But I'm saying that even at this stage, I'm pretty happy and that we are in a good shape as compared to the last year.
And this is really related more with media business or healthcare?
It cuts across. It cuts across media, healthcare, automotive, industrial, manufacturing, education. It cuts across multiple industry verticals.
Okay. And second thing, since we have done a lot of campus hire, so how much time really it take us to deploy the same people?
Usually it takes about 9 months to 12 months, and then we take them through a rigorous training programs and so on. But this time what we have done is we have moved everything into online learning and so on. In fact, with many colleges, we also have tie-ups wherein even before the engineers join, we really make them ready. So what right now we are hoping is to crunch the timeline to between 3 to 6 months. But we really need to see how that works out.
Okay. And last question, if with your permission. See, I mean, earlier in ERD business, the client were insisting more of on-site, but since the COVID has provided us the opportunity and we have been able to prove successfully that offshore also can do, which can help, saving in the cost to the client also. So even if things open up, and so how do we once look at, this onshore offshore mix going on medium term perspective?
If things open up, I would say medium term, we should be anywhere between 65 to 70% offshore and remaining on site. I doubt if we will go back to our earlier 50% on site, 50% offshore, right? Those ratios, we may not go back to those ratios.
Okay. And so typically it will looks little lower. Initial quarter growth terms will be lower, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Mayur Matani, an investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for taking my question. In our earlier calls, we mentioned that there is order book visibility for our kind of company for next 6 to 9 months. Now that you are talking that you are confident of growth for the next 2 to 3 years, so what has made you change your mind, or what has changed in the industry that makes us confident for growth for the next 2 to 3 years? And the second question is that how is the rail segment picking up within the transport vertical, and what kind of opportunity do we see for that segment, and how much it can contribute to the transport segment maybe within the next 3 to 4 years?
Yeah. So order book visibility, as I said, is pretty good, and order book visibility is one thing versus overall growth in the industry, right? When I say growth in the industry, growth expectation, right? I'm not saying that next 2 to 3 years, 100% we will grow. What we're talking of from order book visibility is the 6 to 9 months, right? So that continues, that visibility is there. But all indications, whatever you read, the trends that you see in the marketplace, whether it is on the EV side, whether it's on the OTT side, on the connected healthcare side, all you talk about customers, you talk about the overall industry, the ER&D trend, whatever you read indicates that this cycle will continue for the next 2 to 3 years. And that is the confidence that I talked about. It's not that we have an order book coverage for the next 2 to 3 years. That's not true, okay? Rail segment, yes, rail segment continues to grow for us. We won some good deals even in this quarter. From a midterm to from a 5-year perspective, I would say we would expect rail and off-road, right, that segment to contribute about 20% to our transportation business.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Naveen Bothra, an investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for giving the opportunity once again. My question is regarding the taking from the last con call, our aspirational $1 billion revenue target. If you can enlighten us more about this, is it the right time, or you would take a little bit more time to articulate that $1 billion revenue aspiration by 2026?
No, we've never talked about anything like that, Mr. Bothra. So we talked about having some internal, goals and so on, but we have never talked about it to external investors, right? So we're not in a position to talk about something about which we are not ready to talk about.
Okay. No, in the last con call, we had the discussion that we are in the process. Right now, we are in the process of...
No, what I told very clearly is there are internal goals and we're working on those internal goals, but that is not for the external world.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we take the last question from the line of Rohan Advant from Multi-Act. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So thanks for the opportunity. So my question is again on the onshore-offshore mix, which is 75-25 now. Now, say in FY23 or 24, we go back to 65-20-35. What does it mean for revenue growth and margin? Because will customers reduce volume because otherwise they'll have to pay a lot more, or will it mean very high revenue growth but lower margins but more absolute profit? So if you just could throw some light on, what happens when we move, on the other direction to say 65, 35, what happens to the huge volume growth that we had in the last 18 months or so? Thank you.
Yeah, so this is Nitin here, and maybe I'll take that, Rohan. I would put it very simply, right? These are all scenarios. Now, what is desirable is different from what scenarios may play out. I think what is desirable for us is very clear. We would like to demonstrate offshore delivery because that is where both scale and capability is fully at play. So when you deploy people on site, the capability of your organization is limited to whoever is on site and how much ever little you can convey through him and with him or her in this case, right? So we are very clear that from a strategic perspective, offshore is far more preferable to on-site. It's not purely for margins alone. It is simply because the value delivery is higher. Now, having said that, how does the market trend is slightly different? Because there may be certain customers who by themselves have a slightly greater preference for a lot more on-site than we would like. There may be certain projects which naturally demand a lot more on-site. Similarly, if you look at the rest of the world, especially Japan, Korea, China, and so on, because of language barriers, there is a natural inclination for some on-site, especially multilingual and so on, right? So you have to look at it as a combination of what dynamics come from the kind of projects we execute, regions we are executing in, and what is desirable. We are very clear. We would like to promote and accelerate offshore delivery because we believe that is not only margin accretive, but more importantly, strategically it differentiates us from anybody else in the market because of our ability to deliver. Right? So I'm just making the point that 65-35 is not a desired position, and nor is it that we expect it to go all the way there in a hurry. We expect we pivot very slowly, and that is where a large part of our focus will be, how do you make sure you can continue to deliver offshore?
Got it. Thanks for taking my question and all that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question. I now hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
So, on behalf of Manoj and the management team at Tata Elxsi, I would like to thank all our investors for taking the time to join us today for the call. We've had a good quarter. We hope to keep on these lines, and we look forward to connecting with you again at the end of the quarter. Happy festive season to all of you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Tata Elxsi, that concludes this conference. We thank you all for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.